Welcome to American Christian or Christian American. My name is Sean Legacy. I'm your host. If this is your first time, welcome. I would encourage you to go back and see some of my earlier videos, especially the first few videos. It will set the tone of what I'm talking about and give you a background that sets that tone. If you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button. It helps the channel to grow. It's not like join. Many times if you join, there's a fee. Well, with subscribing, there's no fee. There's no requirement. All it does is get the videos faster to you and helps the channel grow and have more people who are watching at least fairly regular. Also, if you like the video, please push that like button. That helps the video get seen by more people. Now today we're going to be talking about white violence. And again, I say to white people who are out there who may be tuning into this does not mean that every single white person is violent. It doesn't mean that every single, well, let me say this. All of us have a violence to a point because we are all falling from God's grace. But there is a difference between those who we struggle with getting angry or things and do different things, and those who control themselves and those who show their hate and anger. Well, historically, this country was established on racism. It was established on murder of the Native Americans. It was established on going to war and conquering Mexican territories that we now call the United States and taking it from them. This is not a country established on democracy or freedom. This is a country established on conquering. It is a country established on people who did not have, were not the best of Europe. In fact, they were less than the best. We're going to look at several things today. We're going to talk about several different black massacres, and we're going to do some comparisons to other things that have happened in this country. We need to see, people, everyone, whoever you are, whatever your ethnicity is. Remember, I didn't say race, and I repeat this again and again, because there is only one race, the human race. We're 99.9% identical. It is impossible for us to be multiple races. And so it is impossible for us to have interracial dating, interracial marriage, biracial children. It is impossible because we're only one race. Unless you're dating somebody from outer space, like maybe Clark Kent or something, you will not have biracial children. But these are terms that have been forced upon us, programmed into us in order to control the narrative. It's just the idea, I'm not white, I'm Caucasian. And I am really a shade of brown, a very, very light shade of brown, as where others are very dark shade of brown, or all along the spectrum and in between. But we were programmed with the idea that we had to be as white in order for somebody else to be black, and we were elevated above them, which is hogwash. But it's used for power and control. And the sad thing about it is, a vast majority of the people who believe this way, a vast majority of the people who have caused all the pain and suffering are those who call themselves white Christians. That doesn't mean every white Christian. In particular, it is talking about those who carry the name evangelical. Now, President Carter actually kind of was part of an evangelical, but he did not teach the same thing. In fact, President Carter lost the second election because he did not do what the evangelicals wanted him to do. But let's get into some other things. We're going to talk about this, and I've got several different videos to show you that will give you a notion about the past, the present, and, yeah, the future. Okay, we're going to be looking at different, what they're called race riots. What they were was massacres, or they were more one-sided than anything else. But the narrative, the Caucasian, the white supremacy in this country wants to turn things around. And let's not forget, I am Caucasian. My response is, you don't have to behave like this. This is your choice. You can be a hateful and evil person, or you can be a godly man or woman who follows God, who treats people with respect and love. This kind of stuff is not what Christianity is about, but many people who call themselves Christians were involved in some of these hateful things. So this one here, this takes place in January 27th, 1919, and this is in Chicago. Now, I'm not going to read it completely. I'm just going to skim over it, and you can look these things up. But it talks about an African-American teenager who was drowned in Lake Michigan after violating unofficial segregation of Chicago's beaches and being stoned by a group of white youths. His death and the police officer's refusal to arrest the white man who witnesses identify as causing it sparked a week of rioting. Gangs of black and whites, Chicagoans, concentrated in the South Side neighborhood surrounding the stockyards. When the riots ended in August 3rd, 15 whites and 23 blacks have been killed. Again, this is nothing new. This has gone on and on and on. So let's look at the next one here. The next one we've got is August 14th, 1908, Springfield Massacre. And here, the Springfield Massacre, traditionally called the Springfield Race Riots, because again, who is talking and who controls the narrative telling history, was committed against African Americans by a mob of 5,000 whites in Springfield, Illinois, between August 14th and 16th, 1908. African Americans were killed and their businesses and homes were burned to the ground. Some of Springfield blacks fought back in self-defense. They shot back when they were fired upon, and the first victim of the lynch mob, Scott Burton, used his shotgun in an attempt to save his life and his home. And then we go down. Go down to here. The Springfield Race Riots is a prototype for many smaller riots left communities all white between 1890 and 1940, most of which have never been about any historian. All these things would start over simple little things. What they were is excuses or a story that somebody was hurt and they blamed a black man for it, because what they were trying to do was to try to make things in their world so they could, or make things appear the way they wanted to, in order to have an excuse to kill black people, to torture black people. This has always been this country. Rosewood. There was a movie on that, and many people were killed in Rosewood. I'm not going to go over this so much, but either look up the movie or look this up on the internet and see all the different things that happened with Rosewood. In Detroit, this isn't as much of a massacre. It's still an injustice. As you can see here, the sign says, "We want white tenants in our white community." And there was a housing project being built named Sojourner housing project named Sojourner Truth in the memory of a female black leader and poet. And people protested, wouldn't allow people to move into their homes and everything else. It was just a mess. It started out with 150 angry white picketers, and it went up to 1,200. So people had already paid rent and stuff, but many people had sold their former properties or given up on a home, rents, whatever else, and they had no place to go. But again, it goes on. January 15th or January 17th in South Carolina, there was 9 black worshipers killed in a racially motivated attack during a Bible study. So during this time, a 21-year-old man entered the Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina, sat in the Bible study for about an hour, and then opened fire, killing 9 people. He was a known white supremacist. He unloaded his manifesto site, which praised George Zimmerman for shooting Trayvon Martin, an unarmed black 17-year-old. See, this stuff doesn't quit. That's 2015. So he said, well, that's over now, which is a lot what people who look like me like to say. Oh, that's in the past, because they don't care about it enough. They don't want to deal with it. So they just say it's in the past. It's not in the past. This is 2015. All right, so we're going to look at another video after this. So if you really want to know about many of these historical things, here is a shirt that was put together with all of these different massacres on it. And this is something that you need to look up. This will give you an idea of all the different situations that happened in this country. Now, this may not encompass everything. Of course, we know it doesn't encompass all the lynchings that took place and all the other things, but these are highlighted of all these different areas. Please look this up. Take some time, look up each one of these, because if we don't know about the past, we also don't know about what's going on now, and we don't know about what's about to come. It is important that we recognize all these different histories. When you look these things up, there will be different narratives you'll see, black race riots or race riots or massacres. It all depends on who's really telling it and which way it goes to. But even the ones that are has a skew towards their idea will still tell us many of the facts. It's really important to look things up and to understand. So we've talked about, we looked at the black massacres and the things that have happened in this country, but now we're going to look at what's happened recently, January 6th, 2021. And see, these things, when white people don't get what they want. Now, we're also going to talk about that, the concept of whiteness. And I'll deal with that after this video. But the idea is that because we have been conditioned that everything that makes us who we are is being this fictitious idea of being white. That's where it all comes down to. This idea that we're white. And it doesn't matter what happens otherwise. And so people are so full of hate and rage because all they've got is being white. And white churches, too many white churches, not all, too many white churches are teaching this idea of racism and white supremacy and God loves white people and black people are a step down, like pets or whatever else. They don't even treat their pets as bad as they treat other human beings. So let's look at this other video of the January 6th riots and think about this. This is a mob of white people who, when the law won't support them, will break the law in order to get what they want. In other words, they wanted their leader in power in order to do the things that were done in the past. When in the past, black people were lynched. Black people were denied education, even more so than today. All these other things that happened, these massacres, and people got away with it a lot of times. Why? Because the law backed them up. So now we want this white dude who will support us and keep the law on our sides. And so we're going to fight and break the law in order to get him to stay in office. Let's look at this.
So we're going to see some of what our witnesses saw on January 6th. Let's see the video, please. But please be advised that it contains graphic images and strong language, which many may find disturbing.
Hey, brother, we're boots on the ground here. We're moving on to Capitol now. I'll give you a boots on the ground update here in a few.
Multiple capital entries! Multiple capital entries! We're still taking metal, sharpened objects, missiles to include bottles and rocks, and hand-thrown chemical-grade fireworks. This is now effectively a riot.
1349 hours declaring it a riot. Okay, guys. Apparently, this tip of the spear has entered the Capitol building.
If I give this up, they're going to have to run back to at least this capital we can defend. We got to hold what we have.
Take your hands off.
Yeah. The fuck?
Take your hands off.
Where the fuck are they?
There's a 50 who tanked 1033. I repeat, 1033 was from the Capitol. We've been tanked and we've lost a lot.
Lock the shields. Lock them together. Lock them together.
Jimmy, get him to the back. Get him to the back. Get him to the back. Let's get some fresh faces up front.
All right, let me out. Come out here.
Can I speak to Pelosi? Yeah, we're coming, bitch. Oh, my bitch, we're coming for you too, fucking traitor.
They've got the gallows set upside this Capitol building. It's time to start fucking using them.
Start making a list, put all those names down, and we start hunting them down one by one. Mobilize in your own cities, your own counties, storm your own Capitol buildings, and take down every one of these corrupt motherfuckers.
So we fucking need to have 30,000 guns already.
Okay, so now all these people are running all over the place. They're shouting obscenities. They're doing all kinds of things. Now, this video doesn't show everything. It shows a lot, but it doesn't show everything. There were people carrying signs with Jesus and all this other stuff. Jesus would be embarrassed to be associated with these people. Then there's also talked about the fact that one man defecated on Nancy Pelosi's desk. What kind of human being goes to the bathroom on somebody's desk just because they don't like them? This concept of whiteness, this concept of racism degrades us as human beings. It makes us much less than who we're supposed to be. This isn't godliness. Now, I'm not saying that everybody in these groups goes to church even, but the problem is that many people within this group do, and they justify it through a twisting of God's word, making God's word look like it supports this stuff when in fact it doesn't. So all you there out there who are shying away from Christianity because you think Christianity supports it, only a made-up type of Christianity support this, not what the Bible teaches. This is evil people twisting the word of God to meet their needs. Okay? You can't design the plan of salvation or anything for God, because God doesn't need you to do that. And in fact, you need God to change your life. And there are people who truly try to worship God. Not perfect people. They stumble, they fall, but that's the whole point. In grace, God's grace is forgiveness. If we're trying to serve God, He forgives us. But when you have an agenda out there to hurt people and to elevate yourself, some level of self-importance, you're not pleasing God. Now, let's break this down a little bit more. Tim Wise, one of the people out there, I mean, he's great. He talks about this stuff and breaks it down. And let's talk a little bit how this all came about. Let's tell the truth.
The whole history of America is the history of rich white men telling not rich white people that their enemies are black and brown. It starts in the colonies of what would become the United States. Let's remember, during the colonial period, mid-1600s, there was no such thing as white people. I know some people who are now called white find that shocking, right? Because they think whiteness is real, right? But whiteness was created. Europeans didn't call themselves white. We didn't call ourselves white. We weren't all members of one big happy family. Are you kidding? Have you studied the history of Europe? The history of Europe was about killing each other. That's what we did in Europe. We just killed each other. Before we figured out there were other people to kill, we just killed each other, right? I mean, that was the history of Europe. The English hated the Irish, right? Northern Italians didn't even think that Southern Italians were Italians. The Germans hated everybody, and everybody hated their ass right back, right? There was no team called white, no race called white, but all of a sudden, in the middle of the 1600s, there was. Why? Why was it suddenly necessary to create this thing called the white race? Well, because rich people can count, that's why. And so rich folks looked around, the ones that owned all the land, you know, in the colonies, the colonial elite looked around and they realized something, that they were heavily outnumbered by African enslaved folks, by European indentured servants who were just one level above a slave, or other Europeans who weren't technically indentured servants, but they were still peasants, didn't have any money, didn't have any land, and they could do the math. They added it up and they were like, damn, we got to figure out a way to split these folks apart from one another, or they're going to rise up and take our stuff, right? Because after a while, these black folks who were enslaved Africans and these quote unquote white folks who were poor Europeans are going to figure out they're all getting played by these rich people, right? So ultimately the rich figure out they got to come up with some way to get somebody in that group on their team. The easiest thing is to get the poor Europeans, right? Because at least they look like you. They sort of share some of the customs and the culture. So they all of a sudden create this thing called whiteness, and they say, now you're part of the club. Now we're going to let you testify in court, enter into contracts, vote, at least if you're a man, own a little bit of land, at least if you're a man, right? And we're going to get rid of indentured servitude. No more of that, because you're too good for that. And we're going to take the white men, now called white men, and put them on the slave patrol to keep black people in line. Give them a horse and a gun and a badge and make them feel big and powerful, right? They're still poor. They still don't have anything. They didn't pay the slave patrol well, right? Just exploited them, used them as a buffer between the elite and the other poor folks, particularly poor folks of color. And pretty soon the rebellions that occasionally happened where black and white got together to overthrow the elite, those stopped because the divide and conquer had begun to work, right? You could turn people against each other by telling those poor white folks, they got to keep these black people in line. And so that divide and conquer gets initiated in the colonies. Rich white men telling not rich white people that their enemies are black and brown. Fast forward to the Civil War era. And you have, I'm from the South, right? My people, the elite in my part of the country, right, actually announced that the reason they wanted to break away from the Union and possibly go to war with their brothers and sisters to the North was in order to maintain slavery and white supremacy. They said that at the time. We lie about it now. And we say it had nothing to do with that. But of course, at the time, they didn't have any shame about it, so they just said it openly. Right? The vice president of the Confederacy, Alexander Stephens, said that the cornerstone of the new government was the great truth that the Negro was not the equal of the white man. So that's the reason the Confederacy was formed and existed. But here's the trick. If I'm rich and I want to go to war to protect my ownership in other human beings, my property, but you're poor and you don't own any enslaved people, why the hell would you go fight to protect my stuff? Because I'm a rich person. I'm not going to fight. Rich people don't go to war, right? Rich people get poor people to go to war for them, whether it's in 1860 or whether it's during the 1960s or whether it's today, right? Rich folks get doctors to write notes for them that say that they have heel spurs, and that's why they can't go to Vietnam. And if you don't know who I'm talking about, you can Google that shit because he's sitting in the White House right now, right? Oh, I can't go fight. I have heel spurs. Send some poor kids to do that for me, please, right? So that's been a long-standing tradition. So the rich have to figure out a way to convince the poor to go fight for them. But
So think about it. If you're white and you're poor or even middle class, you're being played for a fool. All these people who have a great deal of power and control and money simply want you to believe you're part of them, and you should really hate those people over there. And you're foolish enough to believe it. I'm sorry. But we all have been to a point. I don't know how long, but you are foolish enough to believe that these people up here who have power and control over money care one bit about you. And so you fight with them. Good. You fight with them, you don't pay attention to them. You're wasting your life. These people over here who you think are so different than you, they're not so different. In fact, they probably got more going than you do because they know this truth. And yes, there's problems and struggles. But I've shown before in other videos, white people are the violent people. You have to keep saying, oh, it's the black people who do this, black people who do this, black people, Native Americans do this. It's white. It's not that there's not crime. There's crime with all people. Okay? Every group of people has crime problems. But the vast majority of violent crime in this country is committed by white people. And yet the laws are twisted so the vast majority of prison populations are black people. This isn't about justice. This is about power. Now, we don't want them to have the vote because they know more than these poor white people who just don't know what's going on. So we got to take the vote away from them by putting them in prison, and then we get free labor, and we get all kinds of other companies who want to pay them cheap labor and not pay other people a living wage. So we can do that, and we can take away their right to vote and take away some more rights to them so they are again in slavery, and the poor white people won't do anything about it because they're white people and they're superior. No, you're not. You're not. Now, again, when you're naive, when you want to believe this egotistical idea that whiteness is great, that oh, at least I'm not black, if you believe this silliness, this childishness, then guess what? You will vote for anybody who supports that notion. And you will vote for anybody that demonizes the people that you have been trained like a dog. Because that's what they have to treat you. They train you, indoctrinate you to believe these things. And you, as a poor white person, middle class white person, you're better than all this. But you demean yourself with white supremacy and racism. You are better than that. And when you put yourself in this category of white supremacy and racism, you are degrading yourself because that's not who God is and God wants you to be. And when you have this image of a white Jesus that doesn't exist because Jesus was never white, not that it matters what's in, really the skin color doesn't really matter, but it matters because of it's been used as a lie to degrade people. But you have this image of white Jesus. Jesus wasn't white. None of the religions of the world came through white people. Does it mean that white people are not as loved by God? No. God loves all of us, but quit putting down people who came through. This is all about power, people. And you think that you are powerless unless you're white. No, you're not. If you're a Christian, you have all the power. If you care about other people, you have power. Being powerful with money, there's nothing powerful about that. Plenty of rich families, their kids can be on drugs. Not necessarily every one of them. The love isn't there because it's all about money and greed and training people to be hateful. And if a Christian, You can't be a white supremacist and hold up to any of the ideals and still follow God, because there are two different directions. God, racism. If you go this way, you can't go that way. If you go this way, you can't go that way. They are total opposites. Stop believing mass church organizations that want to tell you these things. Look at the Bible. Get together with those Christians who really want to worship God, not organizations who have deemed their power, like evangelicals. The vast majority of evangelicals came from white Baptist churches. Not black Baptist churches, but white Baptist churches. And I'm not knocking them because of their beliefs, every one of their beliefs. I'm knocking them because it wasn't God they had in mind. It was power and greed and everything else. That's where it came from. We're going to listen to one more person. I got two videos put them together, Dean Withers. And he talks about some things to people who call into him, and he's very sharp. And while you may not agree with every little thing, that's okay. Remember, white supremacy and stuff is dangling two things in front of you, like, for example, that abortion is wrong. Okay, I'm not debating that that's wrong or good. I'm pro-life, but I don't believe the government should have anything to do with it. But here's what I am saying, is that when Roe versus Wade passed in the 70s, evangelical churches were not focusing on Roe versus Wade till 5 or more years later. What were they focusing on? Promoting segregation and racism. But it turned out they couldn't get enough people to get the people they wanted elected on those topics, because things had shifted just a little bit. So they started testing the waters, talking about pro-life, and Jerry Falwell forming the moral majority. And guess what? People went for it. So people who don't even care about pro-life issues used it to get you to believe. Now, remember, life doesn't end after birth. What about all these treacherous things they do to people throughout life, like taking health care away, like all these other things? So you think that you're pro-life and you support a government now that trying to take away Medicare, Medicaid, even Social Security from people. This is going to affect so-called white people too, and everything else. But you are so focused on your hate that you're willing to go along with that. You know, and some people don't even believe, they don't think that's going to happen, as long as they get rid of these people I don't like. Let's look at Dean Withers.
I'm not saying that Donald Trump is Jesus, but it's good to have the light and at least somebody who's, guiding America towards a positive thing and keeping us informed. Nobody's perfect at the end of the day.
Exactly. You just called Trump the light. Exactly, dude. That's what I'm telling you. Remember earlier when I was telling you that you care about Trump more than God? Well, now you're just saying it explicitly. I know Jesus would disagree with everything that Trump is doing. After my long-ass argument where I detailed exactly why Jesus would despise everything Trump is doing, you said exactly, but Trump is the light. Exactly, my God would hate him, but he's the way.
So who would do a better job? I mean, we got Harris or, Hunter Biden. I mean, who do you want to be in charge of this country that's going to make you happy, that is going to be a better supporter of the country?
Well, before you move on to this deflection of asking me who else is better, literally anybody. In the last election, Kamala Harris would have been the answer. Tell me, how is Donald Trump implementing Christian values? Name one core Christian value that he holds to be true.
Well, he has a wife. He has some stand-up children.
Oh, a wife? Did you know that he's cheated on all 3 of his wives, including his current wife? He cheated on his current wife with Stormy Daniels in 2014.
We're all sinners.
Oh, but this just refutes that he holds to the core Christian value of the sanctity of marriage, or else he wouldn't have cheated on her. So, wrong. Go ahead and tell me a core Christian value that he holds to, that he wants to be true of society at large.
Well, I mean, it seems like he wants to keep America safe and make it a better place for everybody, so we could all walk around without having to worry about being assaulted or having our pocketbooks stolen or our wallets taken.
Sure. What is he doing to reduce crime in America?
Well, right now he's cleaning up the streets in Washington and giving the homeless a place to stay. and getting the criminals off the street, also getting the illegal immigrants that are here.
Oh, okay. Well, let's talk about that first point. You think that he cares about crime and violent crime in Washington, D.C.?
I mean, if he didn't, he wouldn't be doing what he's doing. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's rich. He pardoned 1,600 people from their crimes that they committed on D.C. on January 6th, including 70 people that were convicted and pled guilty to violent crimes like assaulting cops, trying to kill cops, taking their guns and pointing it at them, beating them with metal rods, giving them heart attacks by driving stun guns into their necks. That was DJ Rodriguez.
Yeah. But at the same time,
it actually doesn't really seem like he does care about crime or violent crime in D.C. And if he truly did care about crime in D.C., then why would he allow himself as a criminal to run it? Oh,
Tom, I'm not saying that Donald Trump.
Right? They spent billions and billions of dollars, okay, on advertising before the 2024 election to convince you of lies. Donald Trump has ushered in a new wave of American politics within the GOP that doesn't hinge on trying to tell Americans the truth or to be transparent, but rather hinges on trying to get what they want from the American people by lying straight to their damn faces, okay? The right did this before the election with Kamala Harris. They're doing it right now with Zohran Mamdani in New York City. And, we see the GOP doing this with the government shutdown, blaming it on the Democrats, even though the Republicans control the White House, the Supreme Court, both chambers of Congress, the Senate and the House of Representatives. And then they're blaming it on the Democrats with no reason at all and saying that the Democrats are forcing the shutdown so they could give, quote unquote, illegal aliens health care, even though the Personal Work Order and Responsibility Act of 1997 strictly prevents any and all federal welfare benefits that are non-emergency from being given to undocumented immigrants on the basis they're not a legal resident nor citizen. And, right, it is this propaganda that you've fallen for in assuming that if Kamala Harris, the lady that ran on tax cuts for the low and the middle class, the lady that ran on more fiscally conservative policy than Trump because Trump's is more expensive, the lady that ran on fairness and equality for all, the lady that ran on increasing the child tax credit that would have reduced childhood poverty by over 40%, the lady that ran on ensuring that regardless if you're gay or straight, you're not going to lose your right to marriage, and if you're a woman, you're going to have access to health care, unlike SCOTUS now apparently challenging gay marriage on November 7th, is somehow worse than the guy parading around as a wannabe dictator, taking health care away from 41 million low-income Americans that are disproportionately Republican, by the way. Sorry, not health care, food stamps. And then taking health care away from 10 million low-income Americans through the big, beautiful bill. And I think that you're going to have to come to terms with the fact that you've been propagandized. You're a victim of the machine that has fooled you, and you've been conned by a 34-count felon adjudicated rapist. And this will go down as a stain on American history in the long term, and that you can now reflect on that, come to the right side of history before it's over, so you're not embarrassed to talk about your role in this stain 30 years from now to your grandchildren.
Donald Trump does not support law and order. Mike Johnson doesn't support law and order. Mike Pence, for example, just another Republican, maybe not as drastic as some of them, but he's still up there. All these people who have religious faith, and they have done many things in order to take away the rights of people. You've got all kinds of people who are trying to take away, even Democrats. Some Democrats do it. It's not just Republicans, but they have been the strongest force in it. And how is that true? It wasn't Republicans all along. It used to be the Democrats. The Democrats were the people came with slavery and everything else, the Southern Democrats. But FDR changed that a little bit because FDR came to rescue the country. He tried to do some different things, but he couldn't get universal health care because he needed the support of the Southern Democrats. And the Southern Democrats did not want black people to have health care. They wanted them to get sick and die off. Same thing later on. Other people tried to get universal health care. Same problem. And then we came along with Medicare. Don't do it 100%. Do it 80% because if black people can't afford that, then they won't be able to get it. They won't be able to stay healthy. Medicaid comes along to fill the gap when people couldn't afford insurance in our corrupt system. But now they're trying to cut Medicaid. Same thing, people. It's the same thing. And what hurts them will hurt many of people who look like us. When are you going to wake up? When are you going to be that person God intended you to be? And if you don't believe in God, you can still be a better person. You don't have to be as ignorant like these people out here who are following around people who don't want to know. They just want to feel okay because they're white. It's silly. You are valuable to God. You are valuable. You are as equal to anybody else, but you are not better than everybody else. And while you're pretending to be better, the people up top are going to hurt you as well. And they don't care as long as they have their money and greed. That's it, folks. Well, you're going to have to think about this. Until the next time on American Christian or Christian American.